Hey, it's Dave Brown here, host of Now with Dave Brown on AMI. Check out this latest highlight from the show. The new school year is on the horizon. Students in Quebec head back next week. Next week! Stores are going to be busy with folks stocking up on supplies. Don Kelly has some of the Canadian numbers.
But shopping carts and baskets may be a little less full this summer because of rising inflation. A Retail Council of Canada survey finds 73.6% of back-to-school shoppers plan to spend more than $50 this year. That's down from about 77% last year. 61% plan to spend the biggest chunk of their school shopping dollars on stationery. It didn't even make the top 10 list last year in a survey by Cattle. Don Kelly, The Canadian Press, Toronto.
Some American numbers to share with you. Back-to-school shopping expenses are expected to reach $41.5 billion. Billion. That's a lot of erasers. So, how can you save a buck out of those billions? Aaron Broverman has some ideas. Aaron is the lead editor at Forbes Advisor Canada. Hey, good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, Dave. Happy to talk about back to school, although it's been a few years for me. So.
It's been a few minutes for me as well, Aaron. But nonetheless, I think we can still empathize and understand. I don't know if you have teachers in your life. I texted my sister who's a teacher this week, and I basically got back the text equivalent of a growl.
Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of teachers, especially on my wife's side of the family, so I can definitely empathize.
Aaron, let's jump right into some of these strategies. How does timing factor into saving money during back-to-school season? In other words, maybe triaging what you actually need.
It's basically, you hit the nail on the head with that one, because timing is everything with back to school shopping. It might be counterintuitive, but it's actually better to shop for back to school the closer you get to back to school. So right now is the time to find deals. The earlier you shop, you won't be able to find deals as successfully. So, as they say, timing is everything.
Although I imagine there are some items that maybe you can wait on a little bit, right? There's going to be that temptation perhaps to buy a new laptop right before the school year starts, but there might actually be some deals closer to Cyber Mondays or Black Fridays later in the semester.
You could do that if you're a college student and the semester schedule is different, but actually computers come in around June. So stores for computers are wanting to get rid of their stock about now in August. So actually August is the right time to buy a computer, because they're getting rid of their older models and they want to give you something on clearance.
Aaron, I remember about a year and a half ago, you and I did a couple segments together about different kinds of credit cards and loyalty programs, cashback programs. What about trying to utilize the credit card you may have in your wallet for some of those cashback or credit rewards?
Absolutely. I would recommend credit cards, but only if you're a working student, because even though you might qualify for a student card with less of a credit score, they're going to want to know that you have an income to pay for that credit card. On the Forbes Advisor list of best student credit cards, things like the Student BMO cashback card give you 5% cashback on the first $2,500 you spend in the first 3 months. And for students that are studying abroad or studying away from home, you might want to look into an Air Miles card, like the BMO or Air Miles card that gives you 800 Air Miles in the first 3 months. So that's enough for a trip home for a lot of people. So credit cards can definitely help you, but I recommend cashback for the flexibility, so that you're not locked in on a certain type of rewards.
Aaron, I know I mentioned laptops to you before, maybe more of like the big technology purchases that are going to go along with back to school season, or at least for some folks, that's going to be the case. What about being thrifty on that front, looking at used or refurbished goods?
You can definitely spend a lot and look for used and refurbished goods, particularly when it comes to clothing. Of course, the usual suspects are Facebook Marketplace, eBay. There's also places like ThreadUp. And don't forget the used retail stores, particularly for things like sports equipment, where you know that your child's only going to wear them maybe once or twice or always grow out of them. You can go to places in Ontario like Play It Again Sports and things like that. So I would recommend, buying your denim used, buying your handbags used, and buying your sports equipment.
Yeah, I know that if you're shopping in the Scarborough area, I just dropped off some lightly used hoodies, some 3XL tall lightly used hoodies at one of those stores. So there's some opportunities for folks to wear something comfy that was previously owned by a quasi-celebrity. So that's
Yeah,
pretty
I mean,
cool.
winter clothing is definitely one that you want to go with too, because people are always going out of those, and we need them every year, but they can get quite expensive. So a used coat or hoodie, as you say, is definitely something that I wouldn't spend money on to get new.
Aaron, keeping in the realm of being thrifty, I sent you an email yesterday talking about a school bag that I still use that I bought in the fall of 2006. My last year at McGill, I said I'm going to buy a new school bag, feel fresh going into the school year. And my friend, I am still using that school bag 17 years later, wearing that into work almost every day, looking like quite the jabroni, because it is a very, very dirty bag at this point. But I'm still using it, Aaron. So what about reusing supplies from previous years?
You can definitely reuse supplies from previous years. I used to do that all the time with my pens and pencils and even my stationery, because people throughout the year would give me, knowing that I was a writer, would give me so much stationery that I wouldn't be able to crack open half of the journals that I would get. So definitely that's where I would usually reuse my stuff. Plus binders you can reuse for sure, and do-it-tangs, putting your new worksheets in. You don't need to get those new as long as you have enough for all your subjects.
Yeah, especially if you're really good about taking care of your stuff. Like I remember every year on the school supply list, they'd have things like the new geometry set. And it's like, well, last year's geometry set is the exact same thing. Now, maybe I destroyed it because I was a little bit reckless as a teen, but at least be mindful of that, right? You never know what you might actually have in your bag that could be carried over.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, sometimes I'm still finding school supplies at my mom's house when I go back. So there was definitely an abundance of stuff that we didn't actually need that still exists.
Okay, along those lines, zooming out a smidge, there is some criticism that parents are being asked to buy an unreasonable amount of back to school supplies or unnecessary supplies. Sometimes that's framed as a news story. It's not. I remember that being the case even when I was a teenager and in school. I remember a biology teacher insisting on a very particular brand of 3-hole punch, like ridiculous. I just tipped my hand there. But what's your reaction to the criticism about unreasonable or unnecessary supplies?
That kind of thing about the specific 3-hole punch, I think I would definitely question that teacher on that. But also, there are teachers now posting wish lists for their classrooms. So if you do have a little extra money, yeah, you might be able to help them with their classrooms overall, because they're always posting on Instagram. Or if you go to places like inquiringintermediates.com, you'll see teachers posting their wish list. So if you want to support teachers, that might be a good idea. Or if you're sort of against the excessive school supplies thing, talk to your district and ask them why they can't supply some of the supplies. Because, I mean, even with kids carrying these huge heavy bags, like those can get really, really heavy. I remember that I had to broker a deal with my teachers to keep some of my textbooks in the classrooms with them as I went from class to class, because I just couldn't carry everything all the time without really hurting my back. You could also invest in like one of those Pullman or Rollator backpacks. That really helped save my posture as well.
All right, Aaron, let's finish up here on an autobiographical note. What was your favorite school supply to purchase from your recollection and memory? I had two. I loved getting new pens and notepads at the start of the year. Not glamorous or expensive, but so satisfying, Aaron. When you spend maybe that extra 50 cents for the fresh clicky pen, that you can just get that fresh clicking going, and a brand new notepad that you could either stick in your front pocket of your shirt or a larger one that you could slip in your bag. Oh, Aaron, pens and notepads. Even to this day, I'm going to a fantasy football draft on Sunday, and I'm bringing a new pen and a notepad with me, but I'm taking those from the office.
I totally agree with you. I mean, even the smell of a fresh pad of paper, unsullied, is just something that I dream about still. One of my other favorite supplies is when I was in university and I got to take those liberal arts courses, particularly the English courses. I loved being able to buy graphic novels on the school's dime. Like, I have to get Watchmen or Mouse. It's a school requirement, and I could read comics as part of my school studies in some classes. It was awesome.
Fellow liberal arts student over here, my entire bookshelf is populated with literature and books from my school time. Maybe some of the political science books got lost over the years, but a lot of the great literature and philosophers of the last 3,000 years find their way onto my bookshelf that give off the appearance that I'm well read. Aaron, thank you for this. Always great catching up.
Yeah, I love this, and I'll see you next month.
See you next month, my friend. That is Aaron Broverman, lead editor at Forbes Advisor Canada. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen.